So then I clicked on the X button to make it go away, but then it was a link to another ad, and when I tried to cancel that, another window came up and it was this. Dude, what the bro? What does this mean, dude, bro? What the bro?
So we're, well over halfway through DC Future State. We're kind of heading towards Infinite Frontier. And I'm starting to get a lot of feedback, and I've been getting it. It's been building up in the channel from the viewers that I've even got comic shops that said, you know what, I dropped DC altogether. I talked to my customers, and they're not clamoring for me to bring DC back into the shop. I get a lot of people saying, I'm kind of taking a hiatus from DC Comics. I want to see where it goes. Specifically, I'm not jumping back in for Infinite Frontier. I'm going to wait to see what people say about DC Comics moving forward. And I've noticed some other people like Ashon Comics, who's a good friend of the channel. For so long, he would sing the praises of DC Comics. They were like the anti-Marvel comics. And recently, he's claiming that he's decided to drop DC Comics for good. And a good friend of mine of the channel here, the man so cool they call him the Breen, the comic book hoarder himself, dropped a bombshell on me. And then we're going to talk about that. It has something to do with DC Comics. How you doing, Eric?
I'm doing pretty well today.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess you got a weight lifted off your shoulder, or off your back, or off your wallet, or something like that. So you've decided you and DC Comics are on a break?
Well, it's okay. It's not so much a break. It's kind of like I'm kind of at that fork in the road where, I've been reading this stuff for so many years, and I've said this before. There's only so many times I can break in a new universe, and Future State seems to have become. It seems to be more of a success than they anticipated. So more of the elements of that are going to filter into Infinite Frontier. A lot of plot points like the Magistrate and Batman, for example.
The writers for the Flash and Shazam stuff, where you have the four horsemen of the apocalypse infecting people and turning them into murderers.
Yeah, so I'm kind of looking at this, and I know it's cliche to say that every jumping on point is a jumping off point. And I do want to say what I've read of Future State, I've actually liked more than I haven't, but I don't know at this point if I want to invest in the direction that they're going in, or do I want to, kind of take a step back and, get reacquainted with some of the past work that I've enjoyed so much over the years. So it's not really quitting out of anger or anything like that. It's just, you kind of at this point, I'm kind of taking a step back, reassessing, and is this something I want to get fully invested in? And I'm just not sure that it is.
So in my opinion, of the Future State books that I've read, obviously, you got the Batman universe. It's kind of Magistrate centric. You've got the Superman stuff, which has a lot to do kind of with Warworld and basically Superman leaving Earth to John and Kara Zor-El and their conflict. You got this new Wonder Woman. There's some other stuff. Like I mentioned, there's the Four Horsemen kind of infecting some of the heroes. The most enjoyable part, just as far as like an expanded universe kind of thing, is the Batman stuff. But I will say this: it's not like I'm salivating and clamoring. Oh, I gotta see how the Magistrate came into power. It's kind of like, haven't we seen this multiple times? Like, I am disappointed that that's the future of the Batman comics. A lot of my favorite DC heroes are Batman related and are located in Gotham or are going to be associated with Gotham. And I know like Nightwing and Batman and Red Hood and all these characters, Damian Wayne, are all going to be associated with this run up to the Magistrate taking over Gotham. And it's so boring at this point. It's not exciting. I wish that we were leaving it behind in Future State, but knowing that we're leading directly into it in Batman and Detective Comics is a real bummer for me. I'll give you that.
Yeah, the cynic in me says, yeah, I like the Magistrate better when they were the Court of Owls, and I like the Court of Owls better when it was Boss Thorn. So again, that comes from having been around forever, that you kind of realize that it's a new idea to some, the new readers that they're attracting, but for those of us that have been around, like I said, since what seems to be the dawn of time. But I will give you an example. I had lunch with the guy that runs my LCS a couple weeks ago. He has a 19-year-old son, and he's excited for Future State, and that's new for him. So they are reaching. So I guess the audience they're trying to reach, they are to a degree, and that's great. It's just, but if you lose one for every one you gain, when it becomes a zero-sum game, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what kind of long-term success it's going to bring. Yeah, but I said just putting it for myself, it's just too many things that are either things I've seen before or seemingly change for the sake of change, or change to elevate new characters that they want to maybe eventually ease out the ones that I'm attached to. So I guess it's not in any way, shape, or form me saying, well, I'm never going to read this again. I said, it might be the point where it's just either I'm aging out of DC or it's just not what I'm currently looking for.
Yeah, well, what's interesting, you say it's new, but we just had Joker War, we had City of Bane, so it's not like we haven't seen Gotham taken over and Bruce at his lowest point. So even in the recent state, it's like it feels like a lot of kind of regurgitation. But I want people to understand when I say, or we say here on the channel, that Future State has been a bigger success than DC anticipated. DC's expectations for Future State were exceptionally low. And they've definitely exceeded that. It hasn't been the absolute bomb that they anticipated to be, but it has not in of itself been a huge success either. And we've seen diminishing returns, and people are less interested as time goes by, because I don't think they're telling really compelling stories outside of Swamp Thing, maybe Wonder Woman, a couple other titles. They don't seem to be really excited. I think 40 pages is a difficult span to tell a compelling story, although obviously Ram V was able to do that.
Well, now, oh god, no, I was going to say that part of the thing with Future State is you have a limited time, because it was a 2-month event. Now, even though that they're going to take things that work from that and bring it into the Infinite Frontier, one of the problems you have is when you do have only 2 issues, or in a couple cases 3, to tell a story, why do you get invested in something that is going to end? And a lot of these books came with higher price tags and backup stories that you may not necessarily have cared about. So if you were coming along for the ride, it was taking a good chunk out of your wallet. Now, one way to look at it is, okay, if you're buying 10 titles at $5 and $6 a piece, it's still cheaper than if you're buying 18 at $4. But that's an illusion that never seems to work with comic book readers and collectors. They just see that $5.99, $6.99, and you pick it up off the shelf, you look through it, and then you look at the price tag, and that happens a lot. And that, it's hard to tell your story if you can't get them off the shelves and out of the store.
What's interesting, you bring up prices. One of the retailers I've talked to that I've gotten feedback from about, kind of giving up on DC, he says that the cover price is a big part of it. And a lot of his DC customers, longtime DC customers, aren't willing to take the $5 plunge that we're going to be seeing in Infinite Frontier. Essentially, with all your premium titles, your Batman, Detective Comics, Superman, Justice League, and more are all going to have another backup story to raise the cover price to $5. In many cases, probably a backup story they weren't all that interested in. And if it was good, it would be its own story. At least that's the way I kind of see it. And he was worried that Marvel might say that the new $5 cover price and take the plunge as well and drive his Marvel customers away. Is that new cover price, that new $5 new norm at DC Comics, is that something else that's kind of an inhibitor for you to just kind of stick around?
Absolutely. There's any luxury item has a price point where it no longer becomes a luxury, and it becomes something that can no longer afford. It's no one worries about where they're going to go, what long drive they have coming up when gas is $2 a gallon. But when it's 4, you have to start planning. You have to work the gas money into your budget. When just your rank and file comic book is now $4.99, and if there's anything extra, it's $5.99. You have to start making choices, and one of those choices is how many am I going to buy versus how many I used to buy. And I said at DC again, if it's going to cost $5 to $6 times whatever their output is to keep up with their new universe, at some point the cost becomes too much of a factor.
It's prohibitive.
Cost prohibitive. Thank you. I was bricking on that. Yeah. So I absolutely. I'd like to, some of the stuff I'm kind of curious about, see what, say, Philip Kennedy Johnson is going to do with Superman, but I'm not interested in a Kara Zor-El backup story, especially with the version that they're giving us now. If it's, if the backup stories are like, what I think you might see happen, maybe not immediately, but soon, is some of these backup stories will start being the future state versions to kind of keep them in the consciousness.
I imagine within a certain amount of months, the backup stories will be removed and they will just be $5.
Think about what you just said.
But I'm a cynic.
And they will just be $5. That statement alone, that you can make that unironically, tells you just how out of whack the pricing is in this industry. Which, again, to bring back the original point, that's kind of a thing that's prohibited me from a lot of Marvel comics, that I might have been curious about, because I've been off of Marvel pretty much for 8 or 9 years, and when some of the good stuff that does get out, I look at it and go, man, this is $4.99. Every first issue, every special issue. And, when print runs or when titles only last 25 issues, that very special 12th issue, and that's an excuse to make it $6-7. It's at some point, it's not worth it anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting ideas that DC has come up with, I guess, to kind of fleece readers. It's the way I kind of say it. Another interesting point that I think probably goes in DC's favor, I think a lot of people thought that Future State Generation 5, as it was originally known, was going to be like DC's version of Marvel now. It's going to be DC's going woke. They're incorporating all these new characters so they can kind of get rid of the older characters. Doesn't feel like that's what happened. We still got Clark Kent. We still got Bruce Wayne, although there is a new Batman character in there. We got a new Superman, but he's related to Clark Kent. We've got a new Aquaman. He's related to a long-standing character, and we've got Arthur and Mira's daughter in there. So they've kept a lot of the mainstays. There have been some new characters involved, but it definitely doesn't feel like Marvel now. Other than like maybe you could see that Superman versus Imperious Lex felt woke. But, it was a Mark Russell comic. It's exactly what I expected.
Yeah. I from what I've read, I did not get that, the DC was particularly going woke. I will say, Yara Flor did get her lecture on in one of the books where she was
Superman and Wonder Woman.
Yeah, that one. But it was like she was in 3 or 4 different books, and there were 3 or 4 different personalities.
3 or 4 different characters, yes.
Yeah, and that's a problem that Marvel had, like with Ms. Marvel. She was different in every book, depending on who was writing her, and that's a lack of editorial control. But that's one example, and maybe the next Batman, there were some things that could have been worded differently. I said when he said, "I'm the real Batman," if he had just put "now" after that, it kind of changes the whole perspective of how that was written. But by and large, it didn't seem like it was going woke. But it's almost like
it's just going mediocre.
does every character have to have an extended family? That's the thing. We have a Bat family, we have a Super family, we have a Flash family, we have an Aqua family, we have a, I'm sure, hell, it might be a Green Lantern family. It's just it. The more you do that, the more it dilutes the brand. I mean, I think that's a major problem with Spider-Man at Marvel. There are more spiders. There are more spiders in the Marvel verse than that Australian girl's bedroom. If you saw that video, I mean, they're everywhere.
Heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, it's just again, it's hard to give each character their just due when you just keep expanding all of the families of the main characters.
So we did get some spoilers. Obviously, I covered the spoilers for Infinite Frontier #0. Some of the bigger changes that we're going to be seeing with the DC Comics, obviously, Joker's going to be killing Bane. It's going to kind of lead into the Joker series from James Tynion. What else is in there? Jonathon Kent, bucks the feelings of the Spectre. It turns out he's going to be a good Superman. Nubia is going to be the new Queen of Themyscira as Hippolyta joins the Justice League as the new Wonder Woman. What is it? Alan Scott's going to confirm he is gay, but we already knew that one. Teen Lantern is going to be visiting the Guardians of Oa. What else is in there? Now there's an Omega world and an Else world at the center of the DC multiverse. I'll be honest, just reading through them, some of it was interesting, but none of it was compelling or exciting. Maybe you just need to see it in the comic book, but I wasn't going, wow, I need to see how that happened.
Okay, let's play devil's advocate. You read about what was coming. Some of it seemed interesting to you. Would it be more interesting to you if they were still holding the line at $2.99?
Well, yeah, if it was cheaper, I would just.
It's a gamble. If they did such a good job of keeping their prices lower than Marvel for years, and I know out of necessity because they were getting their clocks cleaned. But if you're going to make all these sweeping changes and ask readers to embrace these characters that they've only known about for a month or 2 months, do it at a price point that makes it easier to take that plunge. But instead, they went in the other direction and they raised everything. That's a tough sell.
Yeah. Well, you're an older reader, so you're kind of used to this. Another one of their big ideas for Infinite Frontiers, they're going to be investing not only in backup stories to get a cover price increase, but they're heavily investing in anthologies. We've already got Batman Black and White. We've got Superman Red and Blue coming up. We got Batman Urban Legends. We've got Legends of the Dark Knight, which is going to be a digital series. There's another Batman anthology series out there. There's so much Batman. Are you excited for the reintroduction or the elevation of anthology series at DC? Because I couldn't be less excited. I hate that when I get an anthology and I like 2 of the stories and don't like 2 of the other stories because I keep having to pay for 2 stories I don't want. It bothers me.
The last anthology series that I was really a fan of was Action Comics Weekly. I think it was 33 years ago now. It was weekly, hence the name. 6 features for $1.50 a week. And the characters, I mean, there would be Black Canary, Green Lantern, Wild Dog, the Blackhawks. I mean, Secret Six. I mean, they gave you a couple characters that you were familiar with, and some characters that like second and third tier, but it kept them at least, to a degree, integrated into the universe. And $1.50 wasn't the end of the world in 1988. It was basic, so it came out to $6 a month. And now those anthologies are once a month, but they're going to be $6, $7, $8, $9. Again, it's easier to take a chance on anthologies and find a couple characters that you might not have been invested in and realize that you do like them if it's not, breaking the bank every month. And if they have 3 or 4 of these anthologies going, and I said at it's $7, $8, $9 a crack, no, I'm not interested, because They're not all they're basically, it's just more Bat. And
Well, it's a lot more Batman.
yeah.
And it's with some supporting characters, and I don't know, it's we'll see how it goes. Maybe people have been clamoring for anthologies. I personally don't get that like feeling, or certainly don't get that impression from my viewers. But my viewers obviously are just a segment of the comic reading population, and they're not everything. But I don't know. It's I. So I did find it weird, that you'd been kind of holding out, and DC had been making mistakes, but you had been sticking around, but now you've decided to put your foot down and say enough's enough. I'm not on all in on DC anymore. You're going to have to earn my trust back. And from what you've seen from Infinite Frontier, that's not going to be enough.
No, and again, there does come a point where you can price somebody out of a hobby too, and that's kind of where I think DC is doing with me. When I weigh the difference between paying $5.99 for a 40-page book that I might like the first story, it might be lukewarm to the second, or
those are going to be $4.99.
Okay, even so, yeah. I look at that's $5 comics of stuff that I had before and liked before and would like to revisit, or it's a down payment on the next Epic collection that's coming out. So it's it's getting to be too pricey to take chances. So at this point, I'm going to have to kind of wait for some of the reviews to come in. And I said, I will get Generation Forged. I want to see how that story ends. Mm-hmm. I said, I will absolutely be on board for a Venditti JSA if there is one. I'm not sure about that. Yes, I've been weighing whether or not to go back to Batman because I'm not overwhelmed by. I don't like or dislike the Magistrate, but again, it just kind of feels like a movie I've seen before, and I don't know. And as far as the other titles go, I mean, I'd like to give the Superman titles a try, but I said there's nothing that. There was a time when I couldn't wait for the next issue of a lot of books. There's just really nothing left that I can't wait for the next issue.
Are you going to become a trade waiter?
Please elucidate.
Are you going to start waiting on the trades?
Trade waiter. Okay, trade waiter. I probably not, because if I don't, trades generally tend to be roughly the same price as the individual issues, maybe a little cheaper. And if I don't like if I don't like them enough to get the monthly installments, then I'm not going to pay 6 months worth to get the story. I'm either going to with new comics, I've never been someone to wait for the trades on new stuff. It gives me something to, again, used to give me something to look forward to every month. But again, now it's like, oh, I missed that. Oh well.
You know what the good news is? Obviously, we have some competing superhero universes coming out. You do still have the one over Valiant. I do not suggest that to anyone, but AWA's got a shared superhero universe that's coming out. I highly suggest it. They got a lot of good stuff over there at AWA. Also, Image Comics has got a new shared superhero universe. I think it kicked off with Radiant Black, but they're going to start having that. So there's going to be some competition, and it feels like indies are hot right now, and I think DC might be shooting themselves in the foot. People might be waiting for some of these established DC creators to start dropping their new comics over at Image and other independent publishers, and just move over there.
Well, the one advantage that the big two will always have are the recognizable characters. The shared universes. I salute them for taking the chance. I'm not sure how well they'll do, because the times it's been tried, Valiant's done it several times to varying degrees of success. But I go back to like Dark Horse in the mid '90s with the Comics Greatest World universe, and Images kind of broke apart when the creators took their own companies and separated. It's harder to do with characters that you don't know. but maybe the time's right for it again. Because I said there are a lot of indie titles that are doing very well, and that might be because that is the alternative. If some of the indie companies try to mimic the big two to try to take some of that away, I guess I'd say the last time that was tried, it wasn't given a chance to succeed. Was the DC thing from 3 or 4 years ago?
Heroes.
Thank you. God, I'm having a bad day of memory. Yeah, and that could have worked. It wasn't given a chance to. And if these indie companies are going to do it, they've got to be prepared to hang in for a while.
So Eric Breen is taking a break from DC Comics, but that does not mean you and DC Comics are done forever. You're willing to go right back to them. They just have to give you a reason to come back, right?
Yeah. That's it, and I'm sure they will. There'll always be something out there. They say, yeah, if you can't get rid of me in 45 years, you're not going to get rid of me. So there will be something. Like I said, we have Indie Justice Society. Yeah, there'll be somebody else. I'm actually kind of looking. I will probably start the Joker series. I'm kind of interested in that. But as far as jumping in, diving, across the board, no, I don't see that happening.
All right, Eric. I appreciate the time, and I will talk to you next week.
Sounds good.